There's a cluster of some of my favourite trees in the whole of Epping Forest right here at Leyton Flats near Whipps Cross Road, which is a good way to start today's walk. You know how much I love a good mystery and curious anachronisms in the landscape, and today we're investigating a really good one that's fascinated me for a very long time. And I woke up in the middle of the night, actually about 4 o'clock in the morning, and spent 2 hours doing some more reading. I've been gathering notes on this thing for a long time, more than 10 years. Did some more reading this morning, probably too much, but I'm pumped up and ready to go topographical hunting along the border of Leyton and Walthamstow, or actually not, inside the border of Leyton. We've got everything in this walk today. We're going to explore the Walthamstow Slip, really curious anachronism, and this street opens up so many things. We've got a guy who wrote the play that inspired Shakespeare. We've got the East India Company. We've got Roman ruins. What else have we got? Probably got some Anglo-Saxon stuff in there. We've got all sorts of brilliant characters, the ruins of an old stately home. I mean, King Harold. Basically, the whole world has wound itself up into this thing, into this strip of land. We'll find the end of it, and our first clue up here on the other side of Leyton Flats, the hollow ponds, that kind of area. Epping Forest, the edge of Epping Forest. I'm really excited about this today, so, you know, hopefully you enjoy it as well. It's just up here, on the other side of those trees. I've always found this spot here a little bit of a magical location. This is known as the Birch Well, and I believe it was used for cattle, for the purposes of watering cattle. But it's significant in terms of what we're going to look at now from an administrative point of view. We're looking for a boundary marker which unfolds the amazing story that we'll learn about today. This is the magnificent Eagle Pond here. It runs up to Snaresbrook Crown Court, and the thing we're looking for, the curious anomaly, the anachronism, is about 50 to 100 yards just south of here. I think it's covered in ivy and this undergrowth in here. Let's go for a quick look. I usually walk straight up to it, actually. I don't. This is a lot more overgrown than usual. Here we go. Here we go. Here it is. Yeah, it's really covered. Really covered up. We've got 2 boundary markers. We're only interested in one of them, but the other one is of interest as well. You can't really make the letters out on here, can you? But there are the letters, I think, here, W and P, which stands for Walthamstow Parish. But we are in the old parish of Leyton. What on earth is a Walthamstow Parish boundary marker doing here? And you can see right next to it we have another one here. I'll look up what this one is at home. I've written about this one before, but this is the one that's inspiring today's walk. So that stone parish boundary marker basically is the northern end of a 3-mile long, 50-yard wide strip of the parish of Walthamstow, which sits inside the parish of Leyton. And it's a really curious anachronism called the Walthamstow Slip. And no one really knows exactly why it's here and how it got here. And of course, like anything where there's a bit of uncertainty, there are some great stories that have grown up along it. And when looking at it on the maps, on the old maps, it's marked on the old maps, it throws up some really interesting stories just from walking along the Walthamstow Slip. And that's what we're going to do today, even though it just has started raining, but that won't deter us. If we have to stop for a coffee for a bit till the rain stops, so be it. But we're going to walk along the Walthamstow Slip, across Leyton Flats here, down through Leyton, past sites of Roman roads, Roman villas, old manor houses, buried rivers, and all the characters we meet along the way, till we get to the filter beds. The Middlesex filter beds, I think, is where it drops, well, where it ends basically, at the border, the old border between Essex and Middlesex, which is kind of, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Better put my waterproof jacket on, right? So from our boundary marker here, which is behind the Eagle Pond and right on the border with Redbridge, parish of Wanstead, it takes a more or less straight line across Leyton Flats and goes around the hollow ponds. So that's where our walk will start. And I'll explain a couple of the theories behind why the Walthamstow Slip exists. No one really knows for sure. The first theory for why there is this strip of land belonging to Walthamstow that runs through Leyton, 50 feet wide, 30 feet wide. Well, we'll explain the width in a minute. The first explanation is that sometime, I think in the 13th century, the parishioners of Walthamstow saved the life of a man that had some relationship to the king. Already you can see this theory is falling apart, can't you? This person had some sort of relationship to the king, and the parishioners of Walthamstow came to his aid and saved his life when he was here in Leyton, and the people of Leyton wouldn't come to his aid. I'm going to add to that story and explain why, bearing in mind that it seems that a common link is that the person in distress was probably in trouble in the River Lea. And so for some reason he chose a strip of land that ran from that point through the forest up here. So far so good. There's that one. I read that in the early hours of the morning. I've never come across that one before. The most popularly repeated story is that a body was found in the parish of Leyton, and usually if a body was found, the parishioners of that parish were responsible for burying the body. But on this occasion, the people of Leyton didn't want to bury the body, and so they said, this isn't our body, because it was near the border with Walthamstow. This is a person from Walthamstow, so the people of Walthamstow should be responsible for the burial of this person. And they did it on the understanding that the land over which they carried the dead body would become part of Walthamstow. To which the people of Leyton agreed, without realising that throughout time the people of Walthamstow have been historically a bit slippery. And so what they did is that body was carried by 10 people side by side, who stretched their arms out as far as they could to cover the maximum amount of land, and they carried the body, I think, from the River Lea. I don't know where I heard that, but I heard that once upon a time. It was a body found in the water from the River Lea down there near the Middlesex filter beds, and they carried it all the way to the far edge of the borough, of the parish, for burial for some reason, rather than to the nearest graveyard, to take in the maximum amount of land in Leyton. And hence that is why it's a straight strip of land, the width of 10 people with their arms outstretched carrying a dead body that carried it the length of the old parish of Leyton, thereby claiming the strip of land that we now know as the Walthamstow Slip. That's a good story. I like that story. It's a good story, that. It's a good story. Some people have cast doubt on it because they said it would have been densely wooded at that time. They couldn't do it. I'm having that one. That's a good one. There is at least one other far more intriguing one, which does have a bit of archaeology behind it. But we'll talk about that when we get to that place further down here in Roman Leyton. So we're having to walk around the edge, around the outside of the hollow ponds, this wonderful expanse of water here on Leyton Flats, but that wouldn't have been here at the time of the creation of the Walthamstow Slip. I think the hollow ponds is a Victorian sort of like work creation scheme, like a poor relief scheme that was dug out of gravel pits. So I think the original Walthamstow Slip, if I said Walthamstow Slip, it's because there is a Walthamstow Slip, which is on the other side of the parish. We're always having bits of land taken out of us here. What's going on? But that the Walthamstow Slip would run through the centre of the hollow ponds, I believe. So the two maps that we've got as a guide here date from 1840 and then 1863. There are many features of contemporary Leyton that aren't on there. The hollow ponds is one. More significantly now, on the other side of the road where it carries on, we can take the line from Capworth Street, which we know it runs down Capworth Street. Whipps Cross Hospital is bang in the way. It runs right through Whipps Cross Hospital. So we're going to have to go around Whipps Cross Hospital. And in case you're wondering today what that means for the where Whipps Cross Hospital actually is the Walthamstow Slip was actually abolished in 1885. I think it's 1885 is the exact date, or in the 1880s. Which I think Whipps Cross is built slightly after that. I'll check that date. But yeah, it's running like through here. So Whipps Cross Hospital opened in 1913. So yeah, after the Walthamstow Slip had been abolished. Trivia question for you. Can you name a famous person who was born in Whipps Cross? So we can't pass directly through the hospital site. We'd have to go in a big... So I think this is the shortest way around it, towards the top of Lea Bridge Road, and then we can get back on course. The answer to that trivia question is, of course, David Beckham. So we'll take this footpath along this little bit of open space here. Of course, all these trees and this open space here would have once been part of Epping Forest and part of the farm that stood on the site here. I think it was called Berry Cross Farm. Very suggestive name. I'll refer you to my my Philibrook video, or one of my Philibrook videos, where I go into all of that. And of course, what we would love to find are more Walthamstow Parish boundary markers somewhere. I'm not aware of any, but let's keep our eyes peeled for them as we head down through the streets of the part of Walthamstow which is in Leyton. So you can see that where they've started some of the work on the new buildings at Whipps Cross. I think the plans have been scaled back quite significantly, but there you go, work has already started. And of course, the other thing that the parishioners of Walthamstow didn't have to account for when they were carrying that corpse through Leyton and nicking a chunk of land was Leyton Sixth Form College. And the Walthamstow Slip goes right through the middle of it over there. So again, we have to go around it. But on the other side, we can walk bang on it, I believe. This is the other side of Leyton Sixth Form College. And now we can walk right on the course of the Walthamstow Slip. Until we reach Capworth Street, it's difficult to be sure of the exact streets that the slip is running through. One of the maps I've got, the 1863 map, stops before it gets this far. And the 1840 map doesn't have landmarks such as this in it, because it's 1840, right? But we'll go down Griggs Road and then Cheltenham Road, and then we get to Leyton Green and we're bang on it. And I'll tell you another story, a more romantic, mysterious story about the possible origins of the Walthamstow Slip. So we're going along the edge of the majestic Leyton bus garage, which is an incredible building, a vast building. I've covered in previous videos. There will be links below to lots of different videos. I want to keep my focus here tightly on the Walthamstow Slip. I've teased you long enough with the third theory, and my favourite theory, for the existence of the Walthamstow Slip. Around 2004 there were some excavations down at the Beaumont estate, which is just off Capworth Street, and around the boundary of the Walthamstow Slip they found some fragments of Roman road, and there was a paper, I'm not sure it was the original 2004 paper, but there's been more work done there, more Roman stuff found, and there's been multiple theories about if it is a Roman road, where was it going? What was it part of? There are Roman roads through the area, but how did this relate to them? It didn't seem to align with any of the existing Roman roads. However, it does seem to abut with the Walthamstow Slip. So in a publication about Leyton House, which we'll pass through later on, and the Walthamstow Slip, I'll put the name of the paper and the author up here, which you can access free online from the brilliant Leyton and Leytonstone Historical Society. He raises the question of whether the Walthamstow Slip, which doesn't seem to follow any recognised identifiable kind of boundaries or borders or anything, maybe that was the site of a Roman trackway and perhaps an ancient British trackway. And I seem to remember when I did a walk around here in lockdown, I did come across a reference to a potential ancient trackway which runs through the land behind me here and up through the bus garage. I'll see if I can find that clip and if I've got that right or not. So I think this gap here between the two buildings is where they excavated the fragment of Bronze Age trackway, which is incredibly intriguing, isn't it? Turn around, you'll see there's the Beaumont estate there, and just the other side of there is where they found that fragment of Roman road. So it's very possible that that Roman road may have been a continuation of the Bronze Age trackway heading down from the forest to the marshes. Now we cross over Leyton High Road and just straight down Capworth Street, and at that point we are basically bang on the Walthamstow Slip. It's really lush and green, and you can see, you're looking right down a lovely green avenue here, aren't you? And the local historian, Claire Weiss, the fantastic local historian, she told me once when we were walking the Shortland stream that there was a river that ran down Capworth Street. So I've been looking into it. We have Shortlands Road here, and the Shortland stream runs across what's now Leyton Jubilee Park, Marsh Lane Fields, and runs into the Dagenham Brook, I think, from memory. But just over the road, there could be a lost river. I've never fully appreciated how majestic this church is here, this very modern church. Really quite beautiful. The former Lord Clyde pub over there, which I think is a part of the excavation site where they uncovered some of the Roman sections of Roman road and other Roman finds, of which there are a few around Leyton, most notably Leyton Grange, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. I have made videos about that. So it's actually this trench here, trench 15, so it's not the pub, it's the bit behind the pub. It must be that new build there. Somewhere behind that wall, they dug up a fragment of Roman road. Looks like it was quite a small fragment, but it could prove to be quite significant.
The article in London Archaeologist is titled "A Road to Where?" A number of theories have been put forward as to the route of this road. One was that it was part of the road between London and Great Dunmow. Ralph Merrifield has proposed that it might have been a Northern Fords road taking a slightly peculiar route. Or it could have been a road that connected up to Ermine Street near Enfield. It could also have been simply part of a local Roman road network connecting the other main roads.
I think what surprised the archaeologists was that the fragment of road they found here was as wide as some of the really sort of important Roman roads of southern England, like Walthamstow Street and Ermine Street. But it's not in a place where they expect to find such a significant road. They have an idea of where they think the Roman roads to Colchester and Great Dunmow passed through Leyton and Leytonstone. There's a little bit of disagreement, but they found various Roman finds around the area. They found fragments of road in the past, but this kind of threw a spanner in the works a little bit. What I'm intrigued by is how it aligns with the fragment of Bronze Age trackway that was excavated just up here on Leyton High Road near Leyton Green. So I was using the Environment Agency's flood risk maps, which are brilliant and often really strong indicators of where there are buried rivers. The Phillybrook is marked, the whole course of it is marked very clearly in dark blue as an area of high risk of flooding. So I thought I'd look at Capworth Street, following up on Claire's note. And there does appear to be a strong blue line. I mean, you can see it here, can't you? Even though I'm just holding a printout, that runs down Cooper's, Cooper's Lane from Leyton Midland Road, all the way down and joins the Dagenham Brook. It runs, it's not actually on our route, but you can see as well there's a branch heading up the paper here, or north in real life, that comes off Capworth Street here at Clyde Place. There are other reasons things can flood, but that does seem, the shape of it, the bend, the curve there, that does look like the presence of a river, doesn't it? So that must be the one that Claire was referring to. You can see there is lighter flooding further up Capworth Street, but that seems to be really interesting there. So our brilliant local history society come up trumps again, and there's an article on the website about Cooper's Lane, where this branch of what appears to be a river here merges with one that's very clearly running down Cooper's Lane from Leyton Midland Road Station. And one of the things, I think the article's by the brilliant David Boot, who is in videos on this channel. One of the things they noticed by looking, I think, at the ratepayers and the census records is the large number of laundresses living in Cooper's Lane. There's also a brewery near the end of Cooper's Lane as well. And from looking at tithe maps, I'm pretty sure it's David wrote the article, apologies if not, show that there seems to be a stream running down Cooper's Lane on the tithe maps, which is then joined by another branch, which is possibly the branch here, and it forms a lake at Leyton Grange, which is one of the big houses built by a character we'll encounter very soon. So that seems to confirm, if you like, or certainly further strongly suggest, the presence of a river that ran down Cooper's Lane and fed a lake in the house there. And you can see certain things on the map. And we're now in the, it's interesting, look at this big house behind me, which I won't point my camera right at someone's front door, but we are now in the landscape, in the grounds of Leyton Grange, and further down here, Leyton House, which is where a lot of the stories I mentioned at the beginning of this video come from. So Capworth Street comes out onto Church Road, and where it emerges, just opposite on the other side of the street there, if you look at the 1863 map, you can see the presence of an enormous house there, Leyton House, with a very large grounds and a pond through it, and the Walthamstow Slip cutting right through the grounds of the house. Interestingly though, not through the house itself, which remained in Leyton with part of the gardens in Walthamstow, within the Walthamstow Slip. And that house would have been just over there. There's a really wonderful, invaluable publication I mentioned earlier by David Ian Chapman of the Leyton and Leytonstone Historical Society, just about Leyton House and the Walthamstow Slip. And he goes looking for all the people that may have lived in Leyton House, and one of the first characters which he associates with Leyton House, slightly speculatively perhaps, is a guy called Thomas Lodge. who wrote a lyric verse called, let me get the name right, called Rosalind, I should say, which was actually used by Shakespeare as the basis for As You Like It, which is wonderful. He was an adventurer and he went on a long voyage to Brazil, and it was on that voyage that he wrote Rosalind in, I think it was 1591. It was published in 1590 in London, which is very interesting. Another significant resident of Leyton House appears to be a guy called David Gansel, who married into a significant Huguenot family by the name of Moresco, and they got married in 1688. Gansel may himself have been a Huguenot, I suppose. Huguenots were enormously significant in the history of London, religious dissenters, if you like, who were forced into exile from France, and went on to do so many significant things in the history of London. And it's Gansel who later builds the enormous Leyton Grange, unless I've got that terribly wrong. And it's the excavations at Leyton Grange, he was digging out the ponds where he discovered all the Roman mosaics and tesserae and stone arches and all sorts of stuff that led us to speculate that this was a significant Roman presence here and possibly a Roman way station. And then it throws in the whole thing about all the roads leading here, there and everywhere. Another resident, I should say, of Leyton House was a direct descendant of Thomas More. We have someone who was a member of the East India Company, a significant person in the East India Company. And the last private resident of Leyton House was William Morris, which I'd never come across before. His mum lived here. So did Morris actually live in the house or not? I don't know, but he certainly dined at Leyton House and spent time there with his mum and his sister. After that, it became an orphanage, and that's when it appears on the maps of in the 1890s. And after that, significant to where I'm stood right now, after that it becomes a wire factory, an electric wire factory, which eventually becomes Marconi. And the road I'm standing now is Marconi Close, I think it's called, Marconi Place. It's interesting, isn't it? All from this strip of land. And the Walthamstow Slip is passing right where I'm stood now. Leyton House was demolished finally in 1913. I've never actually been down here before. Let's see where the Walthamstow Slip carries on. Well, I wasn't expecting this. This used to be a big factory here. Was this the Percy Ingles bakery? I'm not entirely sure. But it's been cleared now, I guess, for housing, and the Walthamstow Slip is running across it. So we'll have to go around once again. So here we have the Dagenham Brook, and just further along there, coming off to the left is the Shortland Sewer, which I walked with Claire Weiss. 2020 I think that was, and I've done a couple of videos on the Dagenham Brook. And the Walthamstow Slip is just on the other side of the Shortland Sewer. So we can't actually, I think it runs through a school and then through an old gasworks. We'll pick it up on the other side. We're now walking down the wonderful Marsh Lane. Little slice of the countryside in Leyton. So the Walthamstow Slip is passing through this site here. You've got storage here and a FedEx warehouse here. And it would pass over Orient Way here, and we'll go over that bridge to the final little section where we can walk across the old waterworks site, hopefully to the River Lea. I would do one of those shots where I put the camera down and walk away over this bridge, which I've done a million times. But we're running out of light. It's sunset in about 20 minutes because between me shooting the introduction over by the boundary marker and then the rest of the video, it rained for about an hour and a half. So I went and sat and had a cup of tea in the Eagle. Yes, I went to the Eagle and had a cup of tea, which is a delightful place to sit and have a cup of tea, may I say. So that's why I'm dashing to get the last light, but it's good because it means we might get a sunset on the River Lea. Can you ask for much more than that on Easter Monday? I mean, sorry, I won't make the joke. You make the joke yourself. I am honestly not making this up, but if you look on Google Map, this footpath here running across the old waterworks site is directly in line with Capworth Street. So it seems logical to me that this is the Walthamstow Slip. It's strange, it leads right down to the river. How perfect. It's a really beautiful scene down here. I'm actually now grateful for that delay, so it's delivered me here at this time of the evening. It's absolutely perfect. So this is the point where the path meets the River Lea. The continuation of the path leads right here, and it's interesting that this section is cleared, which is intriguing, isn't it? So perhaps this was where a body washed up against the banks of the River Lea, allowing, I guess, the people of Leyton to deny that it was a body that was in Leyton, that it must have come down the River Lea from Walthamstow. I'm guessing, I think, from memory, that's what David Boot said in his version of the story. Well, that was a really intriguing walk that I've been wanting to do for ages, and I think David Boot of the local history society, the Leyton and Leytonstone History, leads a walk along there on the solstice, the summer and winter solstice. I might be completely wrong, but if that is the case, if you go to the Leyton and Leytonstone Historical Society Facebook page, that's where it will be posted if that is the case. Go there anyway, because it's a mine of information. Most of the information I used today came from there, or certainly a lot of it came from there as well, so that would be a great thing to do. I might join it, finally, after all these years, I might finally join that walk this year on the summer solstice. If you're doing it, David, I will send you a link to this video so you could correct my mistakes. That was wonderful. How intriguing. Was this a place where a body washed up that led to the crafty parishioners of Walthamstow carrying it all the way to the Eagle Pond, thereby claiming a part of the parish of Leyton for Walthamstow? Was it that? Was it an ancient trackway? Or was it something to do with the king and somebody he liked got given help here? That's the least favourable, isn't it? But what an amazing walk, full of stories, full of tales, and I love doing stuff like this. This is the basis of what I do, little intrigues like this, little clues in the local landscape. You just pick a thread and follow it, and you could do that anywhere. There's a version of this wherever you live. And actually, what I didn't mention earlier on is, this kind of thing isn't that unusual, detached parts of parishes in other parishes. We have one here. There's the Walthamstow Slip on the other side in Leytonstone Parish. So they're not that, apparently there's about 1,000 of them across the country. Have you got one where you live? Does such a thing exist in other countries as well? That would be intriguing. So that's the end of that walk. Thank you for coming with me. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm obviously going to go for a pint now. So as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing the next walk, wherever that may be.
It's over the meadow, over the stream, it's where I am going and where I have been. It's been a long day now, it's time for a beer, and now for home, of course I must steer. It's over the meadow.